Every year, as the growing season ends, millions of gardens and fields perform the same cleanup. Branches trimmed from trees, old stalks pulled from beds, fallen limbs dragged into piles. By the first dry day, those piles are set on fire. Smoke rolls across neighborhoods and farmland. What remains is ash, scattered or hauled away. The land looks cleared, order restored. This practice feels modern, even responsible. Burning reduces pests. It removes clutter. It makes space for spring. Many local regulations encourage it, some require it. Across rural areas, controlled burns are treated as maintenance, not loss. What disappears in those fires is rarely questioned. Wood is seen as excess material, something to remove before it causes problems. Left alone, it attracts insects. It takes up space. It breaks down slowly. Fire solves all of that at once. Yet in natural systems, fallen wood is never wasted. Forest floors are layered with it. Logs lie half buried, absorbing rain, holding moisture long after the surface dries. They rot gradually, feeding soil life year after year. Nothing rushes. Nothing is cleared. Modern land management reversed that logic. Decay became something to eliminate instead of something to use. Speed replaced patience. Ash replaced structure. What once stayed in the ground for decades was reduced to smoke in hours, and almost no one stopped to ask what the soil lost when the fires became routine. But what if burning wasn't the answer, and never had been? Well, let's uncover the truth. High in the Austrian Alps, where frost lingers late into spring and snow can return without warning, conventional farming has clear limits. Short growing seasons, thin soils, cold nights that punish exposed roots. In this landscape, most farms rely on greenhouses, fertilizers, and constant inputs just to break even. One farmer chose a different path. Sepp Holzer worked steep mountain land at elevations where agriculture was considered marginal at best. Instead of clearing brush and burning fallen timber, he buried it. Whole logs, branches, forest debris layered beneath soil and shaped into long, raised beds. The practice was old, but his scale was not. Authorities objected. The land looked untidy. The beds were uneven. It did not resemble approved alpine farming. Fines followed. Inspections came and went. Holzer kept going. What grew there drew attention. Fruit trees where none were expected. Vegetables thriving without irrigation lines. Grapes, apricots, and even citrus growing in cold terrain by using microclimates created by the raised beds. Snowmelt soaked into the wood beneath the soil and stayed there. Frost drained away from the slopes. Roots reached downward into moisture stored months earlier. The buried wood slowly decomposed, feeding the soil and stabilizing water levels year after year. The beds required less watering as time passed, not more. While neighboring fields struggled during dry spells, his crops held. Holzer wasn't inventing something new. He was refusing to let an old method disappear. In doing so, he demonstrated that what looked inefficient on paper could outperform systems built on constant input, simply by letting the ground do the work. What made that ground work was not innovation, but what was placed beneath it. Buried beneath soil, wood behaves very differently than it does in a fire. Instead of disappearing, it begins to swell. The structure of a log is made of millions of tiny channels once used to move water up a living tree. When that tree is cut and buried, those channels do not vanish, they empty. Then they refill. Rain moves downward through soil and settles into the wood below. Logs absorb and hold it, expanding like natural sponges. During wet seasons, they take in excess moisture that would otherwise run off or sink beyond reach. When dry periods arrive, that stored water is released slowly back into the surrounding soil. Not all at once, over weeks and months. This effect is well documented in forest ecology. Decaying wood increases soil moisture retention, especially in layered soils where evaporation is reduced. Studies on coarse woody debris show that rotting logs can hold several times their weight in water, maintaining damp conditions long after surface layers have dried. For plants above, the difference is immediate. Roots grow downward toward the moisture. Instead of chasing irrigation schedules, they tap into a reserve that refills itself every time it rains or snows. Even in drought conditions, soil near buried wood remains cooler and wetter than exposed ground. This is not irrigation in the modern sense. No pipes, no pressure, no timing. Just gravity and patience. Water stored when it is abundant, released when it is scarce. The system works quietly, you don't see it functioning. You notice it only when nearby soil cracks and the plants above the buried wood keep growing. As the buried wood begins to soften, another process takes over. Fungi move in first. Networks of mycelium spread through the decaying logs, breaking down tough fibers and unlocking nutrients that living plants cannot access on their own. This underground web connects wood, soil, and roots into a single system. Unlike synthetic fertilizers, this feeding happens slowly. Nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and trace minerals are released over years, not weeks. Each growing season adds more life instead of stripping it away. The soil becomes darker, looser, and more stable with time. What starts as rough ground improves on its own. Decaying wood also acts as a carbon store. Instead of releasing carbon into the air through burning, it locks it underground where microbes and plants can use it. This reduces erosion and keeps soil structure intact. Rain doesn't wash nutrients away as easily. Roots hold fast. Slopes stay planted. In these beds, plants don't rely on external inputs to survive. They grow into a system that feeds them continuously. Earthworms follow the fungi, microbes multiply, organic matter increases each year instead of declining. The soil becomes deeper without being turned. This is the opposite of extractive farming. Most fields begin strong and weaken with each harvest. Wood-based beds do the reverse. The first years are the hardest. Later years are easier. Fertility builds quietly beneath the surface. What looks like decay from above is actually construction below. A slow assembly of living soil that grows stronger every season without needing to be replaced. But as agriculture industrialized, the land itself was reshaped to suit machines. Fields were now being leveled. Rows were straightened. Irregular terrain became a liability. Tractors, harvesters, and irrigation systems required predictability. The ground needed to behave the same way everywhere. Buried wood did not fit that logic. Raised beds settled unevenly as the logs decomposed. Moisture varied from one section to the next. Crops matured at different rates. These were advantages for resilience, but problems for scale. Machines struggled on uneven ground. Pipes preferred straight lines. Efficiency favored uniform soil that could be treated all at once. Flat fields also simplified control. Fertilizer could be spread evenly. Water could be delivered on schedule. Yields could be measured, predicted, and optimized for a single season. Systems built around annual inputs rewarded speed and consistency, not patience. Practices that worked slowly were pushed aside. Wood buried underground did not show immediate returns. It improved soil gradually. Its benefits increased over time. That timeline conflicted with economic models focused on yearly output and short-term profit. As mechanization spread, farming knowledge shifted from observation to instruction. What could not be easily taught in manuals or replicated at scale faded from use. Hugelkultur required reading land, weather, and decay. It varied by site. That variability became a reason to abandon it. Because, well, buried wood does not work on a single season's schedule. They work on a different timeline and take a lot of time. They can persist for decades, continuing to store moisture even as their structure breaks down. Gardeners see the pattern clearly. The first years take effort. After that, the soil becomes easier to work. Moisture lingers longer, and plants root deeper with less stress. Unlike inputs that fade in a single season, buried wood gives more each year, rewarding patience instead of constant replacement. Because once a bed is built, it asks very little from the outside world. No irrigation systems to install, no seasonal fertilizer schedules, no recurring soil amendments. The materials come from what the land already produces. Fallen trees, trimmed branches, forest debris that would otherwise be burned or hauled away. That creates a problem in a system built on repeat purchases. Modern agriculture is structured around inputs that must be replaced every year. Seeds, chemicals, fuel, equipment, water contracts. Value is measured by throughput, not longevity. Practices that reduce dependency quietly fall out of favor. Wood-based beds do the opposite. They improve with time. The most productive years often come long after construction, when the logs have softened and soil life has matured. There is no annual upgrade, no new product cycle, no profit curve that rises fast enough to attract investment. They are also difficult to standardize. Each site behaves differently depending on wood type, soil, climate, and rainfall. That variability resists instruction manuals and uniform recommendations. What works beautifully in one place must be adjusted in another. Knowledge replaces prescription. For large-scale systems, that kind of adaptability is inconvenient. It cannot be packaged easily. It cannot be patented. It does not create dependence. It quietly removes the need for things designed to be sold. So the practice remained where markets had little reach. Home gardens, marginal land, places where people built for themselves instead of for supply chains. Quite interesting, right? Now to you, what else do you think we dismissed, not because it failed, but because it refused to hurry? Comment down below. As you leave a like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for more amazing videos like this one.